Hello and welcome. You are listening to another edition of The Truth Never Retires. The difference is we haven't done it during the month of April, which is ironically Financial Literacy Month. And as you know, the reason that we're doing Truth Never Retires is because I retired in 2024. And boy, was I surprised of how my life would change immensely. However, I did one thing right. I had a financial advisor. You know, our mantra here on this podcast is you can leave anything and anybody if you have a plan. And there was a recent study that came out by, I think, at Northwestern Mutual. And it said that most Americans, almost half, feel like they do not have enough money saved for their retirement. About 48% say they don't feel that they will outlive their savings. And then there's about 46% of Generation Z that says, Eureka, I don't think we're going to have enough to retire and retire comfortably. Most people think you need at least $1 million. I didn't have $1 million. Still don't. But I have a financial planner, and that's what makes all the difference in the world. The Truth Never Retires. My co-host is the lovely Lisa Eli, and she has a guest with us this week that I think you will find just as compelling as our guests in the past. Take it away, Lisa.
Hi there, Miss Perri, and today we'd like to bring to you Mr. Bobby Renner of Renner Financial. He is from the Washington, D.C. area, and how I came across Bobby is that he had just the most wonderful Instagram post on finances and what one should do and how one should manage their finances, and I thought they were really, really good. I will leave the link in this show. You definitely will have his information once we finish, but I just want to introduce you to him. And here we go, Mr. Renner. How are you today?
Doing well. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me, Perri and Lisa. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, one reason why, and one of the videos that I saw is that we were talking about a very important subject, and Perri kind of hit on it a little bit. What do you do when you don't have any money and you don't have any money left, or you're just now thinking about, I'm 50 and I've been working from hand to foot? How does one just get started?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one thing is that first off, you want to take a breath, right? That's what I would say first. Just breathe, relax, know that you're not alone. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not too late. Right? I meet people that's in that exact situation every single week. And, the worst thing you can do is kind of let, a lot of the bad thoughts or shame of it keep you from not starting and building. So, a lot of times when you're going into the retirement phase, you're right in the thick of some of your best earning years. All right. So a lot of times, you think that you're too late, but, if you're 50 years old, 45, 55, the next 15 years are some of your best earning years. An intentional strategy can change the entire trajectory of your retirement. So, first thing is kind of take a breath. We look at a strategy so you see where you are. You have a lot of options there. You have things like, catch-up contributions that are available. And most importantly, there are financial vehicles that most people have never even been introduced to that can really accelerate your retirement savings in ways that, the basic, let's say 401k, SEP IRAs, they simply can't. So step one is always, just relax, breathe. And then, we talk about some education, going into learning some strategies, and then understand where you are, develop a plan for where you want to be, and then use certain tools that are available. That's exactly, kind of the game plan when we're working with someone that comes in can, is in a position where they might think that they're behind.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby, I have a question for you, and I'm very transparent with my life. What happened? I had my mom and my Aunt Annabelle, my great Aunt Annabelle, and I ended up being their caretaker. I was in my 50s. I had not saved a dime for my retirement. No 401ks, no nothing. So I become caretaker. I call them the two OGs. They're not related. My mother is my mother, and my great aunt was my paternal, my father's aunt. Okay, so I took care of her. She was 93. They both had dementia. But she made some my father made some very good decisions in his life. He didn't divorce my mother, number one, so she had a pension. And number two, the other one is that my Aunt Annabelle was very savvy with her money. She worked for the government most of her life, and she had annuities, and she saved, and she was just old school, never married, didn't have any kids. She was just old school. So when she passed, I came into this money, and this is after 2 years of taking care of both of them. All I did was stack their money. I just stacked it, and we lived off of my salary. So when they had passed on, that's what was left. I said, well, that's your a beginning for you to start saving for your retirement. Okay. So then Eureka, the money started, I started realizing I had to hire an attorney and all of this sort of thing. And I received a significant amount of an inheritance. And you know what the first thing I did after, I made all of the repairs on the house and that sort of thing? I went straight to a financial advisor. I did not buy a car. I did not take a cruise. I have already been, a world traveler. I knew that this was an opportunity that I was not going to pass up, a windfall that I could not afford in my mid-50s, wanting to retire at 65. This was my path. This was God's gift for me to be able to do that. So that's what I did. And as I was saying and quoting from the other, and I didn't know this when I got a financial advisor, have a financial portfolio. It was the smartest thing that I ever did. It was the smartest thing. And for these 15 years, I just acted like this money wasn't there. And then on November 15th, my birthday, 2024, I walked away from a 35-year career as a journalist and a talk show host. Most Black people cannot do that when you've only worked for Black people. I've only worked for Black media, but I did it. So if I could do it, this is the point of having you here.
Yeah.
If I can do it, and if you're lucky enough to get a windfall, I know you want that Louis Vuitton bag. I know you want a Kelly bag. First of all, you're not going to get the Kelly bag because you haven't bought anything from Hermes ever before in your life. So forget about it. You're not going to get the Birkin. All right. So let's think about our finances and, your attorneys and your estate planning and all of that. Yeah. Did I do the right thing, Bob?
You know what? I think you did the absolute right thing.
All right.
Absolutely. Financial literacy is really the great, I call it the great equalizer, right? The wealth gap, in this country, it isn't just about income, it's about information. And, the wealthy top 1%, they don't have access to secret investments. And, that's kind of the notion that I get, working with over 1,000 clients here over 10 years. they have access to better information, and they have access to advice. In many communities, whether it's the Black community, brown community, working class community, the money conversation didn't happen at the dinner table. That's just not what we talked about, right? And then, of course, it wasn't taught in schools. And, the financial industry historically hasn't been the most welcoming. And I'll tell you a little bit about, my story. I think it's very similar. A lot of my clients ask, well, you don't seem old enough for retirement. So, how do you know so much about retirement and financial planning, et cetera? So people don't know what they don't know. So you don't know what questions to ask. And that's why I lead with, education and everything that I espouse. Every consultation starts with teaching. Your best option is to have an understanding what certain, strategies are, and how they all work together within your fiscal ecosystem. So I think you taking the time to kind of measure twice and cut once is absolutely the way that you want to go. It's funny because we have a very similar story, except, the timeline might be a little bit different. I was very, very young, and I got into this industry actually through a personal tragedy. I ended up losing both of my parents very young. I was 20 years old.
Wow.
And I lost both of my parents. Yep, I was on a full scholarship at Hampton University. Shout out HU, and full academic scholarship, not an athletic scholarship, even though I'm an athletic guy. But and I was actually in the communicative sciences and pharmacy program.
Wow.
Was not really thinking in terms of business and finance and all whatnot. Affluent family, things were the way they were supposed to be. And then I ran into, losing my parents at 20 years old. And the exact same thing occurred. My parents were fortunate enough to kind of have the foresight to make sure that there were some things in place. And I inherited a large sum of money. Okay, so I was 20 years old. I inherited a large sum of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And
at 20
years
old,
because of 20 years, yes. Yes,
Could have went nuts. Yeah.
You could have went
Exactly.
nuts.
Could have went crazy.
You could have went crazy.
Absolutely.
I could have, and I was fortunate enough to, have an upbringing that I knew what I needed to do, and what was that first thing that I needed to do is exactly what you mentioned, was going to find a financial advisor. Okay, plot twist. Here's the plot twist. I went to a financial advisor. And I went to several of them. I won't say any names here because I've worked for a few, and I know where the bodies are buried. So I won't say any names, but I did reach out. And what ended up happening was I'm 20 years old, young Black kid. I had this money, and I was turned away. Lisa, I was turned away. Perry, I was turned away. Believe it or not, I was actually turned away. They told me that these are several institutions. They told me that. The amount of money I had, and granted, I thought it was, obviously, life-changing, and I've never had this kind of money before, so the way I saw it was completely different. But the way that they saw it was in terms of billable hours and commission. And it did not rise to the level of their commission structure for the certain investment class that I was looking for at the time. And obviously I didn't want.
Wait a minute,
just
hold
anything.
on. So when you
absolutely.
said you were looking at a different investment class, what did that mean? Because you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. That financial institution turned you away. When I was going through all of this, the probate and all of that sort of thing, even though I did have some things in place as a beneficiary, they acted like it was their money. But the whole thing was, like you're saying, they would have I'm sure this large financial institution would have loved to have had my money because I'm a middle-aged person, right? Was that what it was? The difference was, what's the difference between a 20-year-old with $450,000 and a 50-year-old with $450,000?
Well, the difference at the time was that I kind of knew, and I had a certain directive as to what tier of investment program that I wanted to be in. So there was a certain buy-in. I wanted to kind of get into certain real estate investments and really kind of protect my money. I didn't want, I'm still pretty risk averse. I didn't want to, kind of speculate and put money into the market at large. I didn't want to go the ETF route or the S&P 500 route. I wanted to kind of go into specialized investment classes that are open to certain people at the time. It's different now, but 20 some odd years ago.
But you had to have what you had to have be at a certain income level to be privy to be a part of these investment opportunities and options.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. I understand.
Yes.
All right.
So you have to qualify, and you have to come in with the right amount of money.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so now these are things like being a fractional share on a sports team. It was available at the time. And this is, again, you can get into some investments like that, and that's you're printing money. It's pretty safe. And you're able to really just set it and forget it. But I was turned away because I didn't have the amount of money that they required.
Okay.
So they and that really kind of put me in a different mind state. So what I ended up doing was, again, going to a couple different institutions here, and I'm 20 years old. So eventually, while I'm taking about a year to figure out what I'm going to do with this money, I'm spending it as well, right? I have friends, and I'm grieving at the time, and it didn't take long for a 20-year-old Black kid to kind of fall into that cycle of spending. And you look up, I have a beautiful house I've inherited. I have no skills to learn how to actually manage this money. And what I didn't want was someone to just take my money, take my real estate, and just do things with it and not show me or teach me. And that's kind of what I was looking for at the time. And that's what programs would allow you to do. You would be able to sit down with someone and really kind of understand what's being done with the money, really understand some of the strategies that were available. And I was all about that. I really didn't want to just give it to someone and talk to them, twice a year. And that's kind of all that was out there at the time, except for these higher end investment programs. But you had to have a certain amount of money to participate. And I missed it by not much. Maybe a percentage of maybe 2 or 3% percentage points to get into that program. So that's maybe $20,000 or $30,000. And they were very really cold blooded. It was all about the money. It wasn't okay, we're going to make an exception for you because we understand that you're the typical 20-year-old. The typical 20-year-old might have taken this money and blown it. And that's what I thought. And that's not what happened. So it was very, very money motivated. And there was a barrier to entry based on the fact that, you didn't come in with a certain amount of wealth. And that's when, things kind of switched for me.
That's a deterrent. That locks.
Oh, yeah.
That locks us from locks out of most of Black Americans out of Black wealth right there.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
It still goes on to this day. It still goes on to this day. What I ended up doing was I decided I needed to learn on my own, and I switched my major to economics, and that's when I decided to kind of fully go into finance. So I did, and I learned so much. And what really bothered me was some of the things that I learned. I realized, maybe 3 or 4 years later, I realized if someone would have just told me this, they could have just pulled me to the side and said, hey, do this and do this. That money to this day would still be here for my children and my family.
Wow.
I'm doing well now, but
That's
that money
awesome.
to this day, and this is just maybe one or two things that someone could have just told me, but it was guarded because, you couldn't make money off of it or make money off of me, which I thought was a little cruel.
Yeah. Yep.
I wasn't a trust fund baby or anything like that. I
Right.
just lost both my parents, and it helped me out. But no,
No,
the
you
doors
were
were
just
completely
like
shut
most
for.
middle class Americans in this country. That's what most
Yeah,
middle class Americans
Yeah.
experience when a
absolutely.
family dies or a family member
Hmm.
dies, the matriarch, the patriarch dies. There are things in
Yeah.
place. And, after I'm the last one standing, my entire family is dead. So I have no one and I have no
Yeah.
kids or a husband, but I have no one to depend on. So every
Mhm.
move that I made was strategic because
Mhm.
there was no one to say, okay, I could use $5,000 because I need a new
Yeah.
furnace. And then I figured out, I'm like, no, Perry, you work on your credit score.
Yeah.
And that was another question I had. How important is it
Mhm.
as a senior citizen to still maintain a good credit score, especially in retirement? And how has good credit scores? How does it
Do they
impact
mean
you
anything?
in finance? In the sort of thing that you do and the clients that you have, Bobby. For me, when the money did come, I used my radio show as a tool and as a
Mhm.
classroom that really helped me.
Mm-hmm.
I was bringing in people like every week, you
Can't you
know.
tell?
Yeah, I mean, getting people into
You can tell, right?
right. I mean, getting people
Yeah.
into homes and
Yeah.
building
Yeah.
their credit scores and anything that you can imagine in terms of the stock market and APRs and all of this sort of thing and IPOs, you name it. I
Mhm.
was bringing it, but I was selfish. I'm like, I'm really doing this for me, guys. I told them, but you can come
Right.
along for
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
the ride. So that's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Right. Right.
I want people to come along for the ride with you. So
Right.
back to the question, how important is it for a credit score? Because I
Yeah.
know it has opened doors for me that I never even imagined. I mean, really. I mean, in case of an emergency or something, I'm always going to be good.
Right. 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 And that's the credit game is very, very important.
Yeah.
It really is a safety net if you use it correctly, and it's also a launching pad if you use it correctly. What
Mm-hmm.
happens, with people that are nearing retirement or and even maybe farther away from retirement, is just life. It's plain and simple. Life happens, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I've sat with people who went through divorces that wiped them out completely. And if they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a good enough credit score, it's going to be very difficult to bounce back or float or maintain. People who spent decades taking care of aging parents or raising kids, on a
Sandwich
single income.
generation.
Hmm. Hmm. You have medical emergencies that occur. So, if you're saving money and you have a medical emergency, that money's gone. What are you going to do? You're going to need to access some form of credit. And, obviously, the older you get, the more likely, that situation can occur. You have people who simply never really were taught about money or credit. Nobody sat down with them and had that conversation. And,
Mm-hmm.
here's one thing that just really doesn't get talked a lot about, is making sure that you put your money in the right places. And that when you're doing that, you have a good credit score that allows you to do things like take loans against some of your money. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you're not able to access some of these advanced strategies without a good credit score, without
Mhm.
a high enough credit score. And again, some of these investment classes that you might want to get into or investment programs, they look at your credit score. So there's a few barriers to entry that you might run
Oh.
against if not maintaining your credit. And, later on when you really, really need it, it can be very, very important for you. There's no judgment, right? The question really is, where do you start and how do you get there? And a lot of times, there's a way to actually increase your scores and also pay down certain debts and save money all at the same time if you do it strategically. What people do is they kind of do one thing at a time and kind of let one plate fall before they pick up the other plate. But, if you do it strategically, you can accomplish all of those things at the same time. And that's exactly what, sitting down with a financial advisor, and especially there's different tiers here, right? You have the investment manager, portfolio management, and then you have, retirement planning. And those are two different sets of rules.
Yeah.
And people really get it confused. During kind of your working years, you're worried about accumulation. It's all about accumulation. So you might sacrifice a little bit of a credit score to, kind of take risks. Maybe, take money out on a business and max out your loan to debt ratio, things like that. Maybe, you're looking at rental properties, et cetera. And again, your debt to income ratio might be maxed. Maybe your credit cards are maxed because, you're putting money in different places. But when you're, nearing retirement or in retirement, that's the distribution phase. At that point, you need to make sure that you have a very good credit profile to act as a buffer for anything that might occur that will, threaten your nest egg.
Wow.
So if you have $1 million put away, obviously, you want to be in a situation where you're living off the interest of that $1 million, but then you also want to make sure that you can borrow against that $1 million. So you're not having to take that principal, because that principal is what you're living from. You're living off the interest of that principal. So if you need to make a move or do anything, that opens up to you as an opportunity, you don't want to take that opportunity cost from your principal, because the principal is what you're living off of. You want to be able to borrow against that principal. And some of the higher tier debt programs that you're able to use, or debt vehicles that you're able to use, require a very good credit profile, and you can't let it go to waste. A lot of us, we get to retirement and we want to throw away all of our credit cards, put everything away, I'm done with this or whatnot. But you can strategically put yourself in a position where it's sitting there and waiting in your war chest if you need it. And again, it's very, very important.
Yeah, when that furnace goes out, when you have to call Four Seasons, that's when you need a decent credit score.
It's interesting.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting you mentioned credit score, because the one thing that has gone up since I've been unemployed, which is really interesting, is my credit score. My credit score is almost close to 800, all three of them, out of nowhere. And I paid down everything. I had 2 credit cards. I had an emergency, so I've been paying on them. As soon as I could pay them off, which I'll be honest, I pulled out my 401k and I went and paid them off. I went them back down to 0. So I don't owe anything on that. A miracle happened not too long ago. I went to a university that got caught in a lawsuit. So part of the lawsuit, the federal government made them refund all of our money and write off the debt. So that debt for that MBA was close to $100,000. And it got wiped out last week. It's on my credit report and it says paid off. I like the paid off part, not the disappear.
That's awesome.
And that was probably the biggest miracle of all miracles that I could have expected. Because that was my highest debt. I mean, my house wasn't that much. My house it is technically paid off. I'm in some issues with the mortgage company on that. For the most part, all my stuff is done. And it was right as everyone being part of the 300,000 laid off group of African-American women, that was a great thing that happened. I was able to manage all of this stuff down and live on what I need and not what I want. So and I think that's really important, what you said. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to live on what you need and not what you want.
But that,
And I watch some other people. I'm going to start selling some stuff, stuff I don't need,
yeah.
and pass it on to other folks. Either give it away, donate it, or sell it. And that's where my mindset is right now. Even this little thing behind me hanging on the wall, that'll find a home. Everything is going to find a new home. And if I have to minimize, I will. But again, it's living off of what you need and not what you want. And if you need a trip, then save for it,
Right.
and sometimes you may need a trip versus wanting to go everywhere, but that was just a miracle of all miracles this past year, is that the debt just started reducing
That
and the
is
credit
so
score
awesome.
started going up.
And
Yeah.
the
I
other
think that,
I'm
thing
cool
I
with it.
wanted to ask Bob this too, many of us have been just looking at, family members, how they ignore debt. There are some people,
Correct.
there's some families, they only thing they know is to run from debt. Next kid is born, we're going to ruin their credit too, and we're going to continue this. The relationship that we
Yeah.
have with money has to change.
Yes. Yes.
What is the healthiest? I hear people say all the time, "If I just had $5,000, my troubles would be over." No, they won't, because you have an unhealthy relationship with money. So what? So what is the answer to that, Bob? How do we? And what is a healthy relationship with money?
Relationship.
Yeah, right, Lisa.
Well,
Correct.
I
Absolutely.
think that's a great question. That's really a great question. And the way I think about it, and the way I try to teach my clients is money's a tool, okay? And you don't want to place undue responsibility on the money. It's a tool. So the same way you have any tool, you make sure that it's sharpened, it's polished, and it's there when you need it. And that it's ready to be put into action when you need it. So you think about it, growing up, what did most of us hear, right? We can't afford that, or things like money doesn't grow on trees, right? Or if you ask about money, that's none of your business, things like that, right? We don't talk about money, or the classic. We might think that rich people are greedy, right? And these are things that are really taught, are lessons that are generational and taught to us. And those are walls. They get big, they get built into us before we're even old enough to question them. So we inherit kind of a financial trauma the same way, we inherit, eye color or something like that. If your parents live paycheck to paycheck, then you learn, that survival mode is normal. If your family went through a bankruptcy or foreclosure, you absorb, some of that, shame around money. And even if no one explained, what happened, you kind of know, that money is kind of a thing to fear or, treat a certain way. And if your parents, thought about bills, you learn that money can equal stress, conflict, secrecy. And that's kind of that's where we start. That's where you come in a lot of times that I see with my clients. But what you want to do is have an open and honest relationship with your family members, with yourself, with your kids about money. Right? You want to talk to them early and often. Wealthy families that I work with, they talk about money at the dinner table. Bring their kids into conversations about investments, about business decisions, about real estate. Don't think that it's too much, or that you have to be the bearer of all of the information and disseminate it out in bits and pieces, or that it's too dangerous for people to hear. A kid that kind of grows up in a house that hears how do we make our money work for us. Meanwhile, a kid in a working class or middle class family might hear hey, we just have to make it to Friday. Those are really different dynamics, and one grows up believing that money is a tool that they can control, and the other grows up believing that money is a force that controls them. Right? So you really want to have the mindset that your money is a tool. So you don't want to think about accumulating money just for having money's sake, and that's one of the biggest things that I see with a lot of our clients. is that they just kind of want to have the money. And then when it's time to use the money to do something or further themselves, they're afraid to do it, because I just want to have this cash. And, money is exchange of value. So it's only useful when you're
get
using
out of
it
my
to do
head.
something.
Get out of
That's how
my
it is.
head.
I'm telling you. So I
Get
have
out
clients
of
who
my head. I am so, it's like I am so afraid to touch that
yeah.
savings account. I am
I
like
know it.
so
I know
afraid.
it.
I'm like,
Yeah.
if it gets to a certain level, I'm like, that's it. My life is over. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
It is the same thing. My father told me, don't you touch that thermostat. I'll kill you.
Oh yeah.
I will not touch the thermostat in my own damn house.
Yeah. I know it. I know it.
I mean, that's
That is.
I am scared. When I touch I'm like, oh, do I really need to touch this thermostat? I'm like, Perry, it's
Yeah.
your house. You can do whatever you want. But it's true. I'm in a right now I'm in a panic because my checking accounts don't look like they did when I was working. And I still spend like I'm working. But I'm not going into I'm living just off my Social Security. And I'm not one of those people, like I said. I worked for black media my entire life. So I'm not making the maximum Social Security, which, guys, you'll be surprised, is only like $4,000 a month.
Right. Yeah. And that's
not bad.
Yeah, and most Americans, they're not at the top tier. Most white Americans are at the top tier, but most black Americans are woefully beyond that. And the reason why Bobby is so important, and to have these young African American men and women in these spaces is because they, in that Northwestern Mutual study, it also said that when you have a financial planner, you're going to double your money in the first 5 years and maybe less than that. And I can swear by it. It is the truth. You just have to remember, it's just when there's certain, what you said, Bob, you have retirement accounts, you have investment accounts, and you have savings accounts, right? And checking accounts.
Well, what you also have, and this is the main thing that people miss, is you have accountability. That's the
I
main
love
thing.
that.
Nice word.
I love
accountability.
Yep.
And that's what you miss when you don't have a financial. And again, this is an active financial, someone that you're meeting and you're having these conversations with, not just kind of a portfolio manager. You get someone that you can have a conversation with, you can talk to when you're planning a big trip, et cetera, et cetera.
I can call Susan anytime, day or night.
Exactly. If you can't have that relationship, then you really don't have.
You have to.
Yeah. It's the accountability, because you want to be able to tell someone why you didn't hit your savings goal this month because you bought the Louis bag, right? You have to be able to have that conversation, because that's the conversation. That thought is what's going to interrupt you buying the Louis bag, because you're going to have to explain yourself. And when you hear yourself saying it to your advisor, it'll make you think twice. Oh, I'm going to have to tell him. There really wasn't any emergency. I just had to go and buy these Jordans, and now I'm $300 short for my goal, right? And you'll think twice about it, as opposed to if you're doing it all on your own. It's easy. You'll rationalize it. I'll make it up next week, whatever, right? No one's watching. You're just kind of making these moves. So that accountability piece is probably the number one thing. That's what doubles your money. The accountability, period. It's not even the investments. You can have no investments. It's not, taking risks in building a business. You can have no plans to build a business. It's just the accountability with what you are working with and what you have, even if it's just a Social Security, a small pension. Having that accountability with what you're doing with your money and your cash flow will double your money. And that's I see it on the ground. So we have the studies, but I see it boots on the ground every single day.
That's awesome. Perry, you said you got any more questions? I don't have any. I was loving this interview because I'm listening and I'm learning. And there were two things that you said that I wanted to get to, but we're not going to probably have enough time to get to that. The two main things that you learned that if somebody had just told you that. And I think what we're going to do, we're going to have Mr. Renner back.
Well, we have
We're going to have him back for another show.
we have
Absolutely.
to, and especially
Absolutely.
your story is so amazing because
Yes.
it is. We want people to understand that it's natural when you're young to want to spend money.
All
And
the money.
today,
Yes.
in the times that we live in, young people are investing in experiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they will say, we're going to Singapore.
Yeah.
Most
Yes.
of these young people don't want a car. They don't want a house because they saw their parents and grandparents lose everything in 2008 and 2010 during that economic downturn. They were spooked. That is not their American dream. Their American dream is to have a bank account where they can have experiences because they are not so sure that we're going to be here and those experiences will be available in the next 15, 20 years when they have the money. They're not comfortable. And that's why we have to talk to people like Bob. Bob knows these young people. He's seen them. And there are some bright young people out there, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I run into 20, 30-year-olds all the time that get it. They get it. They know that, okay, it's cheap right now. It's cheap. It's a little bit more expensive when you get older to hit those goals. To get $1 million valuation at 20 years old it costs you $100 a month. That's it. If you're putting away $100 a month in an equity account that's giving you something close to 6 to 7, 8%, and you do that from 20 years old, that's all you'll have to do for the rest of your life.
You're talking a high yield account, right? You're talking a high yield account.
The high yield,
okay.
Or even the stock market at whole, right? Even just S&P 500 or down to just a standard equity bearing account. But once you hit 45, that $100 turns into $1,300. That's your number now to hit the same $1 million valuation, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Right. So, if you're working at a part-time job and, you can afford to pay rent and buy yourself something, you can afford to put that kind of money away. It's just knowing it, knowing what it's going to do for you, and then seeing it, right? So having someone show you what it can do, because if you don't know, and having the exposure, and then execute it and having accountability along with it.
And that was the word of the day, accountability.
Accountability.
Tell people how they can find you on social media, as well as, people still do brick and
Facebook.
mortar. I don't know. Where do people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear from anyone that's listening today. You can visit us at renner.financialgroup.com. It's www.rennerfinancialgroup.com, Renner with 2 N's. We have resources, educational content. You can book a consultation right on our website. No pressure. It's real conversation about where you are, where you want to be. Follow me on Instagram at BobbyRenner88. That's BobbyRenner88. Where I post my daily tips, financial education, and real talk about building wealth in a way that makes sense for everyday people. And I'll leave your audience with this, right? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. All right. The second best time is today. Right. So whatever your situation, whether you're 50, have nothing saved, or you're 60 and you're just starting to kind of think about this, the fact that you're listening to this conversation right now means that you're already taking the first step, and don't stop here.
I'm Perry Small.
And I'm Lisa Eli. Amen, amen.
And we'll see you next time.
I love it.
The truth never retires. Have a good one.
Never retires.